This is football. I am Kevin Clark. All right, the Eagles won the Super Bowl. To be honest with you guys, we got on the Zoom a little bit early. Thought maybe we were safe on that one. Big Dom, however, has walked Nick Sirianni onto the field. Saw that. Game is over. The Super Bowl ends arguments. It starts other arguments. We're going to get to those arguments in just a second. But it ends arguments. It's the ultimate finishing move in any argument you're going to have in your group chat for the rest of your life. If you've been defending Jalen Hurts, if you've been defending Nick Sirianni, if you've been defending anything, any of these guys today, any of these guys in Philadelphia, if you've said anything good about them, you are right. That's what the Super Bowl does. And you want nuance? You don't get it. You don't get it. Jalen Hurts has a ring. Nick Sirianni shut me up. Specifically, shut a lot of people up, shut me up. Rings shut people up. That's what they do. And I'm giving this one to Howie Roseman, who I think there's a case to be made, and we can do this all day long. And I'm going to go through the roster here in a second. But definitely the second best GM in the salary cap era. And I don't know how you would slice it with Bill Belichick, because Bill Belichick coached the team. And I think the way Bill Belichick was able to ruthlessly manage the salary cap, keep that dynasty going, rob Peter to pay Paul with some of their position groups, say, hey, we can get away with the lesser defensive backs this year because we have this great D-line. Whatever it is, like that was a masterclass in finding an edge. But I don't know if it was actual team building. We're talking about draft picks. We're talking about signings. That got way worse as the Patriots dynasty rolled on, and it was helped along by Bill Belichick, the coach. If you're just saying GMs only, Howie Roseman is the best GM of the salary cap era. And when Chris Russo was on this pod, he was going through it and saying, well, the Eagles don't have a Hall of Fame coach and a Hall of Fame quarterback, which is what typically you need, one or the other or both, to win a Super Bowl. And I said, well, they've got a Hall of Fame GM. And to me, that matters maybe more than anything. There's not a lot of Hall of Fame GMs. First of all, Howie Roseman just flying through Canton, flying through Canton, with two. Like, that's not even a debate now. But 50% pressure rate. This is halfway through the fourth quarter with 0% blitzes. That's players, not plays. That is a defensive line that is so full of dogs, and some literally and figuratively, Georgia Bulldogs and just dogs, that a Chiefs defense that is, a Chiefs offensive line that is okay, but inconsistent. Joe Tooney's an amazing guard, not an amazing tackle. The interior offensive line typically is very good. But they looked like, what's the definition of mastery? Making a professional like an amateur. And some of those plays, they made that offensive line look amateurish. It's the best compliment I can give. I had a story that I've told before. I'm going to tell it again because they just won the damn Super Bowl. But after the Nick Foles Super Bowl, I went to Philadelphia to do a story about how the Eagles were able to kind of solve all of the modern roster building stuff with analytics and mostly analytics, but then 1 year contracts, all this stuff they do, right? Set cap management. And somebody there laughed at me and said, just shut up, like lovingly. We win because of the trenches. Everything else comes after. Everything else is a tiebreaker once you get the trenches going. I feel like there's a lot of teams that could use that lesson. The trenches come first. Everything else comes second. You can solve any problem later. You got to fix the trenches first. I'm going to get to what that means about Brad Beach in a second. But I thought before the last couple of plays, and boy, that's the last few garbage time scores made the score look. I know nobody cares about, I really did buy the ESPN Sports Almanac when I was a kid. I doubt they make it anymore. And it's not like the Biff Tannen Sports Almanac from Back to the Future. That first of all, here's how old I am. I'm referencing Back to the Future, and I bought a sports almanac when I was a kid. But you just comb through the games, just look, and you'd see Raiders games from yeah, look at that score. Like no one's going to understand the level of dominance that was happening for 3.5 quarters. They're not. And until then, even once they scored, I remember reading a rugby coach in an interview, and they said, "What keeps you going?" A high-level rugby coach said, "What keeps you going? Why are you still doing it?" I guess he was like the Belichick of rugby, or the Nick Sirianni of rugby, one of the greats. And that was a joke. Maybe is it not? Oh, is it? But they said, "What keeps you in the game?" And he said, "The hunt for the perfect game. That's what I want, the perfect game." And at halftime, I was looking at all this stuff, and some of these numbers were just astounding. At halftime, the Eagles had pressured Patrick Mahomes 47% of the time, this is via Nate Tice, and at a rate higher than his completion percentage, 42%. That is dominance. That is asserting, that is your roster saying we're playing big boy football and you're not. That is incalculable destruction. Total victory. Only playoff game this century in which a team had fewer yards at halftime than an opponent had points. Only playoff game. Total, complete victory. No nuance. No, if they do, if only Kelce had not dropped those passes, blah, blah, blah. Nope, wasn't going to happen. They could have played for 1,000 years, and it wouldn't have happened tonight. They could have played for 1,000 years, and at no point would the Chiefs have looked like the better team. Wasn't going to happen. In looking at this Eagles roster, and it's funny because there have been times this year I think people were making fun of the Dotson signing at one point, or the trade. People make fun of the Bryce Huff signing, obviously, although nobody really won that weird little swap that they had with the Jets. But looking at how they built this team, that's the point. They take swings, and the one of those is very expensive, one of them wasn't. They take swings, and it doesn't matter if they work or not, because A, they're just playing a numbers game. They're just going to stack talent on talent on talent, and one of those guys is going to work. And B, it works at such a high rate. Like, you end up with these crazy bargains, like Zach Bond, who's going to get paid. But you end up with these crazy bargains that you're able to take big swings with money elsewhere. They manage the cap as good as anybody because they sign guys to deals as early as possible. Maybe get that memo to Dallas that the price of stars never goes down, only goes up. They know they want to commit to a guy that say, here's some money. They don't care. Like, they got out of the Carson Wentz deal, guys. If you're able to get out of the Carson Wentz deal and end up somehow better off for it after signing to that contract, you can get out of anything. There's a lesson in that. But everything they did was leading to this total destruction. A.J. Brown, the trade in Tennessee. You know what it is? You know what it is, guys? It's the old Jimmy Johnson, Bill Belichick line, right? Jimmy Johnson told Bill Belichick, 24 teams every year, get out of your way. And when I'm looking at the Eagles, I'm seeing a team that, A, never goes out of anybody's way. They're always in that 6 or 8. It was 6 when Jimmy Johnson told the story. But they also thrive on taking advantage of the teams that are in those 24. A.J. Brown from Tennessee embarrassed the Titans in their face. Probably got the GM fired if you look at the timeline. And just out of nowhere, nobody was talking about him being available. All of a sudden, they pulled the trigger. The Titans said, we'll just get Treylon Burks. Good luck, guys. Good luck. How's that going for you? Everything they do. Jordan Mailata, late round pick. Landon Dickerson, hurt at Alabama. Take him in the second round, get a great value. Mekhi Becton, Jets. Looked like he was on the bus train. got him to guard. There's some debate whether or not the Jets wanted him at guard or not, or whether they asked him to, or whether he refused to. I don't care. The Eagles did it. Jeff Stoutland, by the way, this is part of the Howie Nick Sirianni thing. Jeff Stoutland, one of the best offensive line coaches of all time. You can't tell the story without the Eagles without that. Everything's a well-oiled machine. We already know about Lane Johnson, but that was 11 years ago. Hurts, obviously, shut me up. I was way more anti-Sirianni than anti-Hurts. I knew. I mean, you can't say I've seen Hurts play well. I've seen Hurts fit this offense really well. And I think sometimes, and I've voiced this before, I think sometimes when you're signing these mega contracts and everything's working really well, you're paying not to find out what's behind door number 2. And all of a sudden you've got Mike White playing quarterback or something. Kenny Pickett's behind door number 3, guys. Tanner McKee's behind door number 4. Yeah, okay, Jalen Hurts worth the money. Saquon. I mean, I've been talking all year about Saquon. You don't have to do this. We don't have to do this whole thing. But then, again, I don't want to go through the 53-man roster, but then I'm just looking at these Georgia guys where it made all the sense in the world. Just keep taking them over and over and over again. Over. Jordan Davis, who's, he's not nearly as good as Jalen Carter. But then Nolan Smith comes on. I already mentioned Zach Bond. There's athleticism all over the defense. Jalix Hunt, who had a sack tonight, unbelievably athletic. You take the sure things early, guys who have the proven tape, and take the risks as you go on. You blend them together, and good things are going to happen. And I just think that there's and you look at the four-man rush stats and all that stuff, but the problem, the best advantage that the Eagles have is not that nobody else has Howie Roseman. It's that franchises are the ones who get in their own way. Franchises are the ones who overthink this and justify this and say, hey, if only we could take this linebacker and do whatever. No. We're going to have a well-oiled machine where everything makes sense. We're not going to have any stupid justifications for anything. We're not going to retcon and say, oh, well, we tried to do this, didn't actually work. Everything is thought out. And when they have a hole, they fix it. And by the way, I would say the same thing generally for the Chiefs. There's a reason they're really in contention every single year. But there aren't that many organizations like that. There aren't. And that's the reason when we did the top 5 franchises with Patrick Doherty, I had him right near the top, if not the top. I forget. But I'd rank him number 1 right now, and I'd rank him number 1 a bunch of times over the past 10 years. I think the Packers are also up there, but that's a different deal. They don't have an owner, the whole deal, right? But Howie Roseman is the weapon. That front office is the weapon. The other thing is Howie listens to his guys in a way I think is very admirable. He knows how to negotiate. Like, what's Howie? Talk about coaching weaknesses and roster weaknesses. What's Howie Roseman's weakness? I haven't seen one. Moves on from mistakes, the whole deal. All right, so let's go to the other side. Because the Bucs beat the Chiefs in the Super Bowl 4 years ago. It was way worse than this from a offensive line standpoint for the Chiefs. Like and Mike Remmers was out there. I don't know if I've ever said, like, I was getting on Remmers pretty hard I think it was on Simmons' podcast, and like I got a note from someone being like, he's a family man note, and it's like, well, okay. What do you want me to say? He was playing in the Super Bowl and he was bad. I'm sorry, he's a family man. Or I'm actually thrilled. I'm thrilled he has a family to support him after playing in the Super Bowl and allowing the biggest discrepancy, I believe, in pressures in like the history of the Next Gen Stats era. It was like an 8-year sample size, and there would never been so many pressures on Tampa, or so many pressures for Tampa, and so few pressures against Tampa. That's not good. In the elevator bank at Raymond James Stadium, Brett Veach, remember, that was all injuries. But Brett Veach found Mahomes and said, we're going to fix this. Trust me, we're going to fix this. And he did. And they won 2 Super Bowls after that because of it. And they just ran into a buzzsaw tonight. But it's on Brett Veach now to solve tackle. Has to happen. solve the tackle position, get Joe Thuney back inside. Sounds like Trey Smith's going to be really expensive, and they don't have a ton of money to work with there. But they've been able to work miracles before. We'll see what Trey Smith's appetite is. And I think that this is a massive offseason in the AFC, because if Brett Veach isn't able to do that, then the gap narrows with the Bills. Remember, this is supposed to be the Bills' step back season. That was the whole thing. Cap and all that stuff. I don't think that's the case with Mahomes next year, but it could be similar, like narrative. Ooh, they lost XYZ. Like, no, Veach has to fix this now. And when you have a window like the Chiefs Mahomes thing, you can do patchwork stuff. So they fixed the line to get to Super Bowls. And some of it was free agency, some of it was draft, but like Trey Smith's going to get very expensive. You can't just keep the same 5 guys forever. This is not 1972. And so it's really hard to keep a position group together in the salary cap era when you're paying your quarterback that much and Chris Jones that much and a bunch of other guys. But remember, they've drafted so well, they're going to have to give out a bunch of really good extensions. And so I'd say maybe Brett Veach is the most important person in the NFL right now, because if he crushes this, the Chiefs won't miss a beat. If he has a misstep, the Chiefs fall back into with every other AFC team in a kind of a hodgepodge of 4 or 5 AFC teams. We'll see what happens in the draft. We'll see what happens in free agency. We'll see what happens with training camp interest in August 2nd. But we're going to see, like, Brett Veach has so much on his plate right now. It's massive. They have to fix this. Mahomes was bad. I don't want to, I was making the Veach point as just tied to the Roseman thing. Mahomes was rushed and bad. The Chiefs as a franchise were just sloppy tonight. Like, you saw that with the late hit on Saquon. It was going to be 3rd and 26. You saw it with the offsides penalty on a play that would have gotten them off the field. That part of that, I think, was just desperation. They were a desperate team because they were getting bullied in the trenches. And Chris Jones goes down. You start to lose all hope. I was shocked. I wasn't shocked that the Eagles' defensive line mauled what the Chiefs had built on the offensive line, like Joe Thuney being kicked out, all that stuff, right? The left tackle situation. I wasn't surprised the Eagles found those mismatches. I'm surprised that it was so lopsided as far as not having to blitz. I was surprised that Mahomes didn't really have any magic beyond that. I mean, like, even against Tampa, he was like, yeah, watch this. I'm going to do something cool. Like, nothing happened today. Nothing. He had nothing. And started to see ghosts a little bit, started to rush his throws, started to be off a little bit. Like, he's the best quarterback in the NFL. He's going to be the best quarterback in the NFL next year. I would take him first in a draft. He's worth every single penny, if not more, of his $500 million contract. But he was bad tonight. There was a cascading series of events that led to this. Bad offensive line, couple drops, a couple disastrous kind of. I mean, look, guys, if DeAndre Hopkins caught that pass at the end of the second quarter, it's the same deal. Guys, it's the same deal. It's probably the same score because less possessions or whatever. We're not, you know what I mean. Less desperation at the end there because it was already decided. But it was a total, what do you call it? Catastrophic failure. System failure. Everybody played poorly. Kelce played the worst game of his career, I think. Mahomes, and I'm sure he's had, low yardage games, but not drops like that, not sloppy play like that. Mahomes at one point was like the 3rd worst game of the season, and only Trevor Lawrence, by the way, against the Eagles as well. And I think Bo Nix had a worse game. And I don't think I'm gonna lay most of that blame, frankly, on what was happening up front. But I also think that there needed to be adjustments. There needed to be adjustments against Tampa Bay 4 years ago. Give a proof of concept here. But I'm shocked at how bad the Chiefs were. Shocked. Nobody played well. I thought the Chiefs defense would be more disciplined. They were able to stop Saquon. Congratulations. Jalen Hurts was still able to beat you. Mahomes was, some of those INTs, some of those reads, some of those decisions were really bad. I don't know what else to tell you. Like, it was, if I was a Chiefs fan, my jaw would be on the floor. They don't do this because for the 1 millionth time, as Bill Walsh said, there's no such thing as clutch. There's no such thing as rising to the occasion. There's always executing normally when everybody else starts to lose their heads. So why am I surprised? Because the Chiefs are never the team that loses their heads. Never, ever. The Eagles executed normally when everybody else started to lose their heads, and that other team was the Chiefs. That's what's stunning to me. They never do this. They make miracles look easy. I'm going to do 5 minutes of legacy talk, unfortunately. Tom Brady went a decade between Super Bowls 3 and 4. And because, first of all, there's way too many college kids on Twitter who are like, oh, my GOAT, you weren't there. You weren't there. Same with the Jordan LeBron stuff. You weren't there. All of these guys are way more incomplete than you think. And Brady, because of the 7 rings thing, is amazing. He's the GOAT. But he also went 10 years, and Belichick went 10 years at a Super Bowl. We got to wait until we have more of a complete picture for this. I saw some tweets saying, well, the Dynasty GOAT conversation is over. What are you guys talking about? What are you talking about? I don't know. What if Mahomes wins 3 more after this? If you're so desperate for a take that you're just writing off the future of football? Well, you're not going to watch? Well, this is my last football game tonight, so I can't. Mahomes isn't the GOAT. Guys, we're doing this next year. You can only contextualize what you just saw. Mahomes played a really poor game. That happens sometimes. This was the worst game I've ever seen from the Chiefs. One of the worst games of Andy Reid's entire history. He had some stinkers in Philadelphia, had some stinkers in the early part of Kansas City, but as far as the stakes go, he hasn't been this bad since some NFC title games in the early 2000s. It's been a while. But to say this has any bearing on how we're going to consider Mahomes' legacy, I got to see more. If this was the last night, what was the Buster Olney book? Last night of the Yankees dynasty. If this was it, and Cooper DeJean running in the pick 6 there, if that was the last time we saw the Chiefs as Super Bowl contenders, I'm hand up. I'm happy to hear about it. Okay, great. We'll talk about it then. I don't think that's the case. I'm taking the Chiefs to make the AFC title game next year. You know why? Because that's what they do. That's the floor of the franchise. I thought there wasn't going to be anybody like that ever again after the Patriots left. That was the default. You gave them a bye into the AFC title game and said, okay, I'll see you guys there on January 27th. I thought there would never be another team like that. Well, guess what? The Chiefs are going to be there. They're going to keep being there. It's like it's the Anton Chigurh coin toss scene. Heads or tails. It's been traveling here. It's here. Heads or tails. That's the Chiefs. They're there. They're sitting there. They got the little cattle gun thing. Anyway, I've said too much. We'll keep going here. A lot of off-season stuff. I want to thank everybody for listening. We're not really going anywhere. But I would, because it's the season, the end of the season, I'll just say this. Listening, watching, all of that stuff, this has been such a fulfilling season. We've done so many cool things. Miles Patola and Michael Flynn have been absolutely amazing. Quab is an amazing member of the team who joined this year as well. I just can't thank everybody enough. Omaha is a dream to work at. It's terrific. Thank you to everybody on the ESPN NFL side. We're going to be back midweek with audio. You may have heard this on video. Audio of Shedeur Sanders and Ashton Jeanty. I also do a topper on the draft. And the following, we're just going to start draft stuff. We're just going to get right to it. So thank you. I can't put into words how grateful I am I get to do this. It's very cool. Super Bowl week was amazing. I hope you guys had a good time. We still have a bunch of clips to put out. There's a couple of interviews to put out. So we're going to still be rolling on that. But like, I wake up every day just so I don't know, confused. Whatever the opposite was of what Brady was talking about tonight, where he was like, well, every time I lost Super Bowl, I was like, that game didn't happen yet. I wake up and say, well, I don't have I get to do all these cool things. Oh wait, I do. It's the opposite. I am constantly befuddled with the cool things I get to do. Constantly befuddled. And that's because of you guys. So thank you. Thank you to the team. Thank you to Omaha. I will see you guys midweek. I'm going to go to Disney with my children. My child. I don't know why I said children. What the hell just happened? I have one child. Just let me say, I'm going with my kids. I have one child, and we're going to Disney. If you have any Disney tips or prayers, please let me know. Talk to you guys soon.